listen, you weren't expecting this at all, but I'm going to start with a little quiz. And when you get to the end of the episode, you'll understand why. I'm going to ask you, well, anyone who wants to play the game at home can obviously listen, but the quiz is, can you name Pep Clotet's starting 11 in his last game in charge, one before he got sacked? If you want any clues, it was a 2-1 home defeat to Bury.
You have to give names now.
By the end of the episode, I'll give you a chance to run through it. Anyone who's playing along at home, I'll give the answers then as well.
Was Eastwood playing?
Eastwood was playing. There you go. Great start.
I got one.
1 out of 1.
Okay.
Right.
Leave that with me. Guys, welcome to episode 3 of You Are My Oxford. I'm Matt. For those of you that don't know, this is Dan. And we're essentially two mates chatting about by far the greatest team the world has ever seen, of course, Oxford United. Dan, hard to believe it is episode 3. I've had a bit of feedback. I had one message this week that said, cannot believe that you compared yourself to David Rush. You're far more Steve Antrobus. But there we go. Any takeaways from the first couple of episodes, Dan?
We had a lovely message actually on our YouTube channel, which is You Are My Oxford on YouTube. Lovely message from one of Paul Moody's sons saying how much he enjoyed the interview with Paul Moody. That was episode 2. And that it's kind of triggered him into action himself, into wanting to interview his dad. And he also expressed regret that because he was one of the twins who was born prematurely, his dad may have missed out on a big money move to Man City. So really lovely message.
I love that. That's almost made me tear up. I can't believe we're already sparking that reaction, which is great. Shall we get down to football then? Dan, you were at Stoke. I didn't manage to get up there because of family commitments and early starts and all that kind of thing. Good day out.
First time I've been there since, you mentioned Steve Antrobus earlier on. First time I've been to Stoke since Steve Antrobus scored the winner in the last minute in, I think it was 2000 or 1999. I'd forgotten how far it is from the station. So really, really long walk, which unfortunately I'd had 2 pints at Stoke Station. And by the time I actually got to the ground, I was literally bursting.
You've not learned.
Got there just in time.
Losing away or all these games, yeah.
So that was a bit of a drama, but managed to make it in time. Not a bad day out, to be fair. We called Gary Pragmat in episode 1. I think that's probably a fair description for how we played. It was a really pragmatic performance. Obviously could have nicked it at the end, which was we'll talk about that chance quite a lot throughout this episode, I think. But yeah, it wasn't a bad day out at all, to be fair. A good point, definitely a good point. I'm at the stage now where I'm thinking all points are good points as we climb towards that magical 48 or 50 points or whatever it's going to be that will hopefully keep us up.
Yeah, just from my perspective, obviously watch a game from home and absolutely like buzzing for a point at the end of it. I think my wife and daughter at one stage when it was about 60 minutes in going, are you still watching this? It is so boring. And I was like, no, I'm absolutely loving this. Yeah, and we can speak about the chances a bit. Just from my perspective, and tell me on this, but it sounded like another fantastic away support, like just Oxford noise throughout, which I thought was amazing.
I'm getting really annoyed of being stuck in corners. Like every single ground we go to, we seem to be stuck in a corner. I still miss the old days where they actually put you behind the goal, but we were kind of stuck in the corner, like up by one of the corner flags. But it was an incredible turnout. You know, it just looked like lots and lots and lots. And as you say, the noise was like really amazing. People cheering, singing the whole way through, despite the fact the game itself was pretty dull. But yeah, it was a great atmosphere.
Yeah, probably. You know, at the end of the season, they probably won't. Too many moments will make the kind of highlights reel, but should we chat about those couple of chances?
So yeah, there were 2 chances. The first one was Bradshaw. I want to pick your brains on this, Matt. For those of you who don't know, Matt's very modest. He doesn't mention it much. Normally after a couple of pints, he does start talking about his ex-footballing days. But Matt was a great footballer in his days. Played striker for Burton Albion, Matt, is that right? And Banbury United.
So United, Oxford City. Just for those, I won't bore you too much, but I did have a trial at Oxford United and was quickly told where to go. But yeah, I wouldn't say great, but I had a non-league football career, Dan. Yeah.
So you were a striker as well. So I'm fascinated by these two chances because there's been a lot of talk about the XG on both of them, and Theo's going to come on later on and talk about XG. But the first one, Bradshaw threw on goal. That the XG is saying that's a better chance. What is, as a striker, what do you think?
I mean, for me, it wasn't clear cut. I think it's one of those that when you're a striker in form, you'd probably make it look easy and stick it past the keeper, and everyone go, "Oh yeah, that was quite an easy chance." Maybe snatch it a bit, but I wouldn't say clear cut. To be perfectly honest, I think in a game of few chances, you look at those moments and probably stand out a bit more. But you know, do I think, I don't trust Bradshaw in front of goal? No, not yet at all. I think maybe if he had a bit more of a run of games, it wasn't his first start and stuff like that, he might have been slightly more composed. But, there we go. That's my take on it.
Yeah, it's shame. I mean, from where I was sitting, it didn't look kind of clear cut. It looked like the keeper came out really quickly and kind of narrowed the angle. And none of us in the stand were going, "Oh, he should have scored that." The one we were really intrigued by, and obviously sparked a lot of conversation on the way home, was the Ole Romeny chance. It looked once he got the ball off the keeper, all you're thinking is open goal. But then you start thinking about the angle and so on. Would you have scored that, Matt, in your pomp? I guess is the first question.
So I'll tell you what I liked about it.
Go on, yeah.
Was the fact that he's made that happen. And when he's then got the opportunity to have a strike, he's not looked nervous about it. He's used his instincts and thought, this is what I'm going to do. And it's such a shame it didn't sneak in, right? But again, do I look at it and go, he's made the wrong decision there? I'm not sure. I think he did what he felt in that moment was instinctive thing to do, and I quite like that. And I thought what I loved about it, when he came on and he looked confident. So that was my takeaway from it. Should it have been a goal? I've watched it a number of times. Like, should he have, probably when they try and guide the ball, along the ground into the net? I don't know. I thought, hindsight's a great thing, but I wasn't really disappointed and worried from that strike that he made.
From my perspective, as the top scorer for Moody Bell team in the Hull Intramural League Second Division 1994, I'm saying I'd have spooned that right over the bar, right, straight away, no problem at all. I was interested though that he lifted it, and I guess it's because that defender was like sliding in that he felt he had to lift it, I guess. And if he'd lifted it, 2 inches less, we're talking about an amazing finish, and everyone's raving about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The XG said it was a low XG, and I mean, I look at it, and maybe like XG doesn't take into account there isn't a goalie on the line. I don't really understand how XG works. Hopefully, Theo's going to fill us in later on.
One thing just overall about it, I think, was really interesting for me was that Gary Rowett turned to Romeny when he did in the game, and I think that's interesting and maybe a sign for things to come.
You are my Oxford, Theo's Stat Corner.
Well, one of the big success stories of episode 1 was our stat kitchen with Theo. Theo joins us now, unfortunately not in his kitchen, very much from a stat work environment or something like that. Theo, we were just talking about chances from the game the other day, that Ollie chance, Bradshaw chance, speaking about XG, trying to get a head around it. You're the man to tell us, give us a bit of insight. What does XG actually mean? How do they work it out?
I think it's quite an interesting comparison, those two chances. If you look at Romeny's chance, you get an XG of 0.3, whereas Bradshaw's is just over 0.4. But actually, I think if I asked either of you which are the better chance, considering how the pressure on Bradshaw, the open goal that Romeny have, which would you say was more likely to score?
Yeah.
I'd miss them both. I'm quite happy to. My XG would be very low on both. I think I'd prefer Romeny's one. Right? I think I'd be more likely to score that.
And I'd agree with that. I was going to say that as well. So,
as a lefty, I think I'd have found that angle really hard. I'd have to kind of like outside of the foot it, kind of bend it in. But yeah, so that one did have a lower XG than the Bradshaw chance, and kind of looking into how XG is calculated, it sort of becomes more clear why it was why those numbers came out as they did. So XG takes into account from thousands and thousands of shots in the past, the chances of a goal from basically that position and that part of the body. What it doesn't include is obviously the skill of the player, or whether they're under pressure, or whether there's a goalie there, which seems sort of important. So that's kind of, you know, where Bradshaw was 7 yards out with a shot with his foot, that gets a very high XG, where Romeny was much wider, gets a lower XG.
So I've always struggled a little bit with XG. There's a game I remember in particular, Stevenage, a couple of years ago when we won 5-1. It's like one of the best performances ever. I say a couple of years ago, it's like 8 or 9 years ago. Time flies. But I remember afterwards, like, somebody on Twitter said, you know, they pointed out the XG, and the XG between the two teams that day was surprisingly close, even though we'd had 26 shots on goal. We'd had 2 penalties, one scored, one missed. We hit the post a couple of times. It's just the most one-sided game I've ever seen, and yet the XG lied. Now, I'm not expecting you to dig up the data on that particular game, but how might that have been the case that the XG was similar?
Well, we must have scored from wide positions with, I don't know, I can't even remember the goals. They went, and I think the thing with XG, and it's like any stat in football, is that there are always games and cases where you're just like, this is a complete nonsense and doesn't make any sense. And it happens a lot with maybe possession or shots on goal, where, you know, the team battling relegation has a few long range efforts that just about make it to the goalie. And there's a tick in the shots on goal column. And at the end of the game, they've had 4 shots on goal, and you think, oh, how have they lost 3-0? It's because they were nowhere near the goal most of the time. And there will always be cases with XG as well, where it's just doesn't really add up. What you've seen with your eyes doesn't make any sense compared to the statistics you see on a piece of paper. I think the reason I get quite into it, I mean, I work with numbers in my day-to-day life. I quite like numbers generally, but it helps kind of give a broader picture of how teams that you can't just watch all the time are doing. So especially in the last few years when we've been battling either for promotion or, in this case, battling at the bottom of the championship, you're not going to sit there and watch all these games from all the rival teams, but just taking in XG, possession, all of these things just gives you a broader kind of understanding of what you're up against. And especially earlier in the season, I'd say that when there's a smaller kind of sample size and you're trying to work out whether teams are just being unlucky or if there's a wider trend, that's the kind of examples where I find it quite useful. I think by this stage of the season, like, you take our XG over the course of the whole season, we're massively overperforming it. We have the 23rd highest XG for goals scored, and but that's clearly over the course of 29 games, or however far we are in now. The way we play has meant that we've picked up more points and scored more goals than the XG would suggest. So there's that trend of actually, well, in real life we've got more points. So what the XG says just doesn't really matter. But it's about, for me, it's about giving an indication. And interestingly, if we look at it under Rowett, if you take our XG and our X goals against, XGA, and you say, well, we get 3 points if we get more than the other team. Obviously, you're never going to get a draw because it's to 2 decimal places, and we get no points if we've got a lower XG. Lower XG. Then the XG model would suggest we've got 18 points from his first 8 games, and in real life we've also got 18 points. So sometimes it does kind of come out where it all fits with real life. Other times, like the Stevenage example you're bringing up, it just doesn't reflect reality.
Interesting. Excuse my ignorance. Just a couple of things to pick up on that. And I'm going to be honest. I'm not one that looks into XG before games or after games or in games and all that kind of thing. Has our XG improved throughout the season?
Our XG under Rowett is almost exactly what we were seeing as an average of the whole season. So our XG per game is just less than 1, which is exactly what Rowett is seeing as well. With what we are seeing with Rowett's reign so far is a lower number of expected goals conceded. So he's tightened us up in terms of giving away big chances, I guess you'd say.
Theo, thank you so much. You've taught me a lot today.
Yeah, thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks
Theo,
for having
what's your XK for the next episode? Do you think you're going to be back in the kitchen, or
it depends what day of the week. Tuesdays to Thursdays, I'm going to be X cupboard or office cupboard. Mondays and Fridays, you can find me in XK.
Well, of course, the other game that we need to cover and that's happened since we last spoke, Dan, is Luton. Another interesting one. So many talking points, but how are you feeling going into this one?
I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good at all. This season, my predictions have been okay generally. Like when I felt good, we generally have picked up points, and when I felt bad, we kind of haven't. This one, I got completely wrong. I wasn't feeling good about it at all. I think there's a number of things. It's partly the kind of the Matt Bloomfield effect. You know, he's ex-Wickham. Wickham just constantly have done, you know, they've done us dirty every single time we played them, it seems. We just always seem to do badly against Luton as well. Like, you know, my memory is scarred by lots of like punishing defeats to them in my youth. And then obviously there was that famous one in the conference when we're winning like 1-0 with not very long to go, and we somehow managed to lose it in injury time. Just generally, I hate Luton, and I didn't feel good about it. And when we went 1-0 down, I must admit, I thought all my premonitions were coming true. Were you there, Matt? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it. I wasn't there. It was Tuesday, and I was up until the last minute. I was working in London, and could I make it? And I couldn't. But I watched it on TV. So it was a funny old game, wasn't it? I mean, funny old game, as they say in football. Like the fact that we came back from behind twice just made me feel just more joyous about the kind of Gary Rowett era. Obviously, defenders scoring again, and you know, you look at Kieran Brown, you look at his finish, like, all right, striker. So you know, that was great. But I think my main takeaway from the game was how woeful Luton's defending was. Like literally crazy, like acres. Greg Lee had acres. I just couldn't believe it. But I came away, you know, when the final whistle went, I was almost wasn't like joyous. Yes, we've done it. Almost like, yeah, we should have won that, and we came back twice, and we're a better team than Luton, and we're a strong championship mid-table team. And how many points are we off the playoffs?
Yeah, what are we, 9 or something? We're certainly closer to the playoffs now, aren't we, than we are to the relegation zone. Not that I think that counts for much. I can't see us getting in the playoffs. I just can't.
Let's see after this weekend, Dan, and maybe we can do a pod on whether we are playoff chasers.
You mentioned 3 defenders scoring in the game, Matt. Can you remember the last time all 3 of our goals were scored by defenders in a match?
Has it ever happened? Just trying to
Go
think.
a long way back. A long way back.
I mean, there's obviously, thinking Matty Elliott era used to get 40. Was it one of those, or you think it's earlier than that?
No, it was last season, unfortunately.
Oh,
really
absolutely done me. Absolutely done me. I love that though, Kieran Brown and Greg Lee.
So yeah, for those who are listening rather than watching, I've stuck up from Rage Online. The game which happened last season, it was Shrewsbury Town, the 3-0 win. Kieran Brown, Finn Stevens, and that long-range Greg Lee special with an open goal.
How could I forget? Wow. They love the onion bag though, don't they? Brown and Lee.
So Kieran Brown's our most productive player this season in terms of goals and assists. So I think in terms of goal contributions, I think I saw that stat somewhere. And Greg Lee, he's only been with us, a full season, really? And he's got 10 goals already, which is quite astonishing. I love Greg Lee. I just really love him.
I think, you know, when we were debating titles for this pod, we were wondering whether we should call it the Greg Lee Appreciation Society. But in the end, we went with You Are My Oxford. But you're right. He loves he's always kind of sniffing out. He wants to get on the score sheet, doesn't he? So, which is always great from a fullback. So, but God, he had to be composed for that goal. Seemed to be in the air for ages.
So this is another like XG thing as well, which again we can mention to Theo. But everyone's saying that's an absolute sitter. But the XG was saying that it was like 4 out of 40.4, which is like 4 out of 10 chances somebody will take that. I mean, then I started thinking, well, it's quite an easy header. But then obviously I thought, well, I wouldn't have scored that. Definitely, I'd have closed my eyes and it would have kind of gone out for a throw in or something. But then you think, okay, professional players. But then I started thinking about our team and how many of our team, our starting lineup, especially our front line, how many of those would you have fancied to have scored that header? Sparky? Would you fancy Sparky to score that?
I know. It was one of those where you've got too long to think about it.
Yeah.
And there's no one challenging you. So it's literally you and the ball and the goal. But you're right. If I was to put anyone in that position, you'd probably want Greg Lee there, wouldn't you?
You put pretty much our entire back line on the end of it. So you definitely have Sam Long. Yeah, Sam Long would definitely have scored that. Greg Lee would definitely have scored that. Kieran Brown would definitely have scored that. And
Hellick would have.
Hellick, yeah, exactly. So yeah, there we go.
But lovely, lovely, lovely feeling to beat Luton. Because as you say, Dan, we don't love Luton.
Yeah, I've always hated Luton. I mentioned a little bit earlier on. I was the first team I ever saw beat Oxford, and we're going way back here to 1987, I think it was. First team I ever saw beat us, and I've been to like 8 or 9 games by this point, was Luton at home, and they absolutely battered us that day. It was 5-2.
What was the score?
It had been about 12-2. And yeah, just that really, I was so horrified that day. It's like literally panic stricken. Like suddenly this team, it's like the end of the milk cup team. And suddenly they all looked really, really, really old. And certainly like some of the players never played again after that game. I think it's David Langan's last ever game for us because suddenly they all looked really old. But it segues quite nicely to the next thing we're going to do, where we do talk about like a game or memory that lives with us. And I'm going to talk about the second time that Luton played us that season. We actually ended up playing them 4 times that season, in 2 cup competitions as well. But yeah, I'm going to talk about a really, really poignant game for me, and it was a dramatic and horrifying game with 11 goals in it.
Oh wow! I remember this game. I didn't go, but I remember seeing this one either on teletext or come through on the video printer, and it was one of those that said brackets spell out 7. And I remember thinking it was around about that time, I could be wrong, where the wheels were just coming off a bit and crazy things were happening. Was Mark Lawrenson manager then, or am I wrong?
No, Mark Lawrenson was soon to take over, but you're right. The wheels had totally come off. Funny enough, we'd been earlier on in that season up to I think it's 6th or 7th in the league. So this is in the top division in the whole of English football, the Premier League as it is now. And we climbed up to 6th or 7th in November. Everything seemed to be going really, really, really well. And then we just stopped winning. And by the time we got to Luton, this was in February, I think we'd been about 9 or 10 games without a win. And it was starting to look really, really, really worrying. We went to Luton. Luton at the time, for those who don't know, had a plastic pitch and a really bad plastic pitch. It was described by players at the time as basically just a piece of concrete with a thin bit of carpet on top. So goalkeepers didn't like diving on it. The ball literally bounced everywhere. Luton had also totally banned away fans. So in theory, it was impossible to get to the game. I was hanging out with these lads at the time who were confident they would get in. So they phoned me up and said, Dan, will you come to the game on Saturday? And I said, yeah, of course I come to the game. I said, you sure we're going to get in? They said, yeah, definitely get in. So we went to the game and lo and behold, some Luton fans met us beforehand and said, yeah, we'll get you in, lads. Don't worry, no problem at all. Like we weren't wearing colours or anything. For many years, I had the ticket. Used to get a plastic ticket in those days at Luton's ground because it was all like home fans only. You could only get in with almost like a credit card type thing. So for many years I had this plastic ticket. It's probably sitting somewhere at the bottom of an ocean now, slowly deteriorating. Anyway, had this ticket, got into the game, and it was mental. I've got actually the highlights here. Let's run them.
And the header, it's in from Steed.
Genuinely, Matt, could have been 37-6. Like, genuinely, it was the most bizarre, weird game I've ever known. Everything, well, say everything went in isn't true, because not everything did. So many chances were missed. It was just relentless attacking from Luton, really bad defending from us, and then occasionally Luton would get bored and let us score. Honestly, you look at the goals. This is pub football, right? You'd have been smashing them in that day, Matt. I've lost track of the score here, but this is that's Richard Hill, so that's about 6-3, I think. This is a good goal. This is your mate Les Phillips, I think, who scored this one. Now, funnily enough, the whole game, Matt, if you want to watch this back, the whole game is available on YouTube, because bizarrely it was screened live on Norwegian television. So there is a whole game with Norwegian commentary on YouTube if you fancy watching the horror of that day. Ever since then, I've absolutely hated Luton. They scored that season 15 goals against us in 4 games, including a 5-2 at our place and a 7-4 at their place. Ever since then, I've hated Luton, and that's my little story.
A couple of takeaways from that, because watching that footage, I now remember Steve Hardwick in those tracky pants. Yes, Steve Hardwick, love that. Les Phillips, didn't know he had that in his locker. And also, I remember Richard Hill. I remember when Richard Hill signed, and it was like, Richard Hill, he's going to be amazing. I think he was from Northampton. I think we paid a bit of money from it. I think he'd scored like 30 goals or something for Northampton that season. Never quite happened. And also, I remember how much I used to love Dean Saunders for that short period as well. But I remember that game now. Wild. Lucky to have won that.
I do remember whenever Oxford scored, there were like little pockets of Oxford fans who'd obviously managed to blag their way in also. So maybe 20 or 30 Oxford fans there. But I am one of 20 or 30 Oxford fans in the entire world that watched that game in the flesh. And I hated every single second of it.
Maybe if you were also at that game, let us know.
Yeah, you can email us. You are myoxford@gmail.com. Or if you want to just leave a message underneath our video on YouTube. And we are on various socials. We're on TikTok, although with precisely 1 follower at the moment. We are also on Blue Sky, and we have got a Twitter, although we're having a few problems with that account. Thanks, Elon.
You are my Oxford hot take.
So every episode, we ask our viewers, listeners, to send in a hot take. In episode 1, we had an amazing hot take from Andy, who was saying that the U's is a crap nickname and that we should think about changing it. There were some great suggestions on social media. One of them I really liked was from Andy himself, who suggested the Roof Sharks after the.
I'm in for that one. I'm in for that. I think we just go. I think we just go with it. I think we just go with it for next week.
Come on, you Roof Sharks.
But yeah, it was a really good one, and we want you guys to send us your hot takes. Anything kind of Oxford United related that could spark a bit of debate and a bit of conversation. You've already heard the email, but do email us at yourmyoxford@gmail.com, or as I say, find us on the socials and get in touch. Dan, this week's hot take?
It's a great one. Here is Ollie H, who sent this in.
Hi guys, this one is about the infamous 205 days Oxford United spent under the much maligned Pep Clotet. Now for me personally, this was quite an exciting period, but when I speak to my fellow Yellows, I quickly realised that the man is almost unanimously ridiculed. My hot take is that it's unfair the way we look back at that era and that manager, and whisper it quietly, should he have been given more time? Think of the passing football, the exotic signings, Ricardinho just come in, having been playing Europa League football with Malmo. My first game under Pep, I was in the south stand lower, just a few yards from the touchline where Ricardinho was bombing up and down, had a brilliant game. I thought this was going to be amazing. Admittedly, some of those signings did not turn out to be the best, shall we say. But I'm going to give you 4 names that prove me wrong. I think were brought in under the stewardship of Clotet, and tell me these aren't modern Oxford United greats. We've got Rob Dickie, James Henry, Mousinho, and the man, the myth, the legend, Cameron Brannigan. Also in defence of Pep Clotet, we've got long-term injuries to the likes of Nelson, Rob Hall. We just lost Maguire, our top scorer of the previous season. And I'm going to leave you with the win ratio of Pep Clotet, sitting at 33.3%. Doesn't sound amazing, but it is exactly the same as a certain Des Buckingham. I rest my case.
Quite a compelling case, actually, Matt.
There's a few players that were named there, which I forgot. Okay, is that right? Did Brannigan come during that period?
He did. Well, he signed the week before he left, so I'm not sure how much this was Clotet signing, or maybe the board were signing him. The other one, interesting one that he mentions there, is James Henry, who the story is that it's actually Michael Appleton who did the signing, but then Michael Appleton left just before the final signature was made. So when Clotet came in, James Henry kind of had already agreed to join. But Rob Dickie, not a bad signing.
Yeah. Mousinho as well.
Yeah, apparently so.
Fair enough. I mean, that's quite a haul in what? How long was he also manager? 5-6 months.
5-6 months, yeah, really. So not long at all. I remember I didn't go to many games under him. Is it at that stage of my life where my kids were kind of at the age where they needed kind of looking after at weekends and so on. So I didn't go to that many games. I did though go to Blackpool away quite early in his reign. And I remember chatting to a friend before the game who said, "We are amazing. Forget everything that Appleton's done. We are so exciting to watch. This guy's going to take us to the promised land. We are like the most exciting, best team I've ever seen." And we lost 3-1 that day, and we're absolute rubbish.
I mean, I seem to remember there was high and lows during that period. Like some, cracking results, and then we get thumped, right? So was he our Ange Postecoglou in some ways?
Kind of grumpy, sour.
You're kind of throwing everything at it, and some weeks it worked and some weeks it didn't.
I mean, it was the results were wild. We obviously had that amazing 4-1 win at Peterborough, for instance.
Yeah,
just totally out of the blue, amazing performance. And then we had obviously the 7-0 defeat at home to Wigan, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which
at home, yeah. That's not good, is it?
And I just remember listening afterwards to Radio Oxford, and his interview was just so kind of blasé about it afterwards. And I was like, "Mate, you've just lost 7-0 at home. We've mentioned 7-goal defeats twice now in this podcast, but they don't happen often. You can't just say, yeah, it was, just a bad day at the office. It was a disaster. You lost 7-0 at home. I probably would have sacked him on the spot then. The other thing I didn't like about him was he looked a bit like Mr. Claypole from Rent-A-Ghost, which is definitely one for our younger viewers.
You nailed it there. You nailed it there. Bang on. I mean, now I'll never be able to unsee that.
One for people of a certain era. Matt, bloody hell, that's 2 7-goal drubbings in one episode. I've always been fascinated, Matt, as a player. What's it like in a dressing room when you just lost 7 or something or whatever? Have you ever been in that situation? What does the manager actually say to you?
Have I ever been in a 7 drubbing? I'm sure I have. Must have done. I think there's one of either two ways. And for those of you who don't know, I used to play for Banbury United, and my manager was for most of that period was Kevin Brock, the legend that is Kevin Brock. Someone who I just hold in the highest esteem ever, just the nicest person in the world, most amazing footballing brain. But I think it's one of either two things. It's an absolute rollicking, this is ridiculous, how do we make it happen, pointing players out, or it's and this is more often, absolute silence, manager, we're not going to speak about this today, we're going to speak about this on Monday, which is even worse in some ways, so that you don't get that kind of, off the handle kind of passion and effing and blinding in the moment, but everyone reflects on it and then speaks about it, hopefully in a more considered way. in a few days' time. But yeah, Dan, you're making me rack my brains for 7-0 defeats. I'm sure I must have had a few.
I was once man of the match in a 13-1 defeat. Our team's man of the match. I had a great game that day, but lost 13-1 here.
You ain't got.
So we obviously got jubbed earlier on the season by Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it? No, Middlesbrough. We got jubbed earlier on the season by Middlesbrough, 6-2. Do the players, do they take it on themselves and say, yeah, actually, that was my fault. I had a crap game? Or do they look at the manager and think, you got this wrong, buddy, right? You know, how does that work?
No, I think it's normally the former, to be perfectly honest. I don't think, it's normally the former. And because, or sometimes you just put your hands up and go, listen, I didn't turn up, but also they were very good. And, if you think about that Middlesbrough performance, I think everything that they struck kind of went in. So there's a bit of that. But it's one of those where you just right, let's move on. Try and forget about it. What can we learn from that? Bad day at the office kind of thing. I don't think footballers tend to dwell on bad performances and drubbings as much as fans do.
Okay, that's interesting. Because sometimes I find myself thinking, I wonder now how our players reflect on the whole Des Buckingham era. And obviously, we had that terrible run at the end of 1 win in 16 or whatever it was. And I wonder now that we're kind of unbeaten in 8, whether they're looking back and thinking, oh, probably it was Des's fault.
Again, football is a fickle bunch. If you're in the starting lineup,
you're happy, and the manager's amazing. And, we're just unfortunate sometimes and that kind of thing, but there'll be certain players, maybe Will Vaulks in some ways, that look at it and go, God, I'm glad Rowett's in now. And, I know what my role is a lot more. And it's, everything's simpler. And all this types of thing. So, but maybe the benefit of hindsight will make players think, actually, now, actually, we have a much more plan, and maybe what Des was doing wasn't quite right. But no, I think I don't think players look back and think, oh, Des was rubbish or anything like that.
So our players must be in, pretty high spirits. I mean, how do you think the next couple of games are going to pan out? Was Bristol City this weekend? How are you feeling?
Confident, but Manning and all that kind of thing. And it's very interesting. I can't kind of predict it. Obviously, the run we're going on makes me kind of confident, but I just don't know. And I think we're in that period now where we've just been on such an amazing run that you want something out of every game. But just something about Bristol City, there's something about Liam Manning that just makes me a bit nervous. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm the same, to be honest. I didn't feel great before the away game this year. I just thought the whole Liam Manning thing was a bit of a sideshow, and people just too focused on that and all the kind of name calling and everything, rather than actually just thinking about the game. Having said that, the game itself, I thought we were quite unlucky to lose. I didn't think we deserved to win, but we were 1-0 up in great shape, and then obviously that Mark Harris chance, XG probably,
which I still think about.
Yeah, so I don't know really. I'm not feeling massively confident about it. Partly because we're just on this incredible run, and the bit of me, the negative bit of me, keeps thinking, well, we're going to have to lose at some point, right? After Bristol, Matt, we've got Burnley away, high scoring, highly entertaining Burnley.
Tough one though, isn't it? I mean, be pleased to get anything out of that. Also Tuesday night up there as well, so I don't know. I mean, just looking at it, we've got Bristol Saturday, then we've got Burnley. I mean, I'd be very happy with 2 points out of that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come away with 1 point from 2 games there. What do you think?
Funnily enough, I'm not feeling great about Bristol City, as I mentioned. I'm actually feeling a bit more confident about Burnley in a really funny sort of way. Obviously, Burnley are a funny team. They got derided last week for that 0-0 draw against Leeds, where they didn't even have a shot on target in the entire 90 minutes. Now, I know that's against Leeds, who are a slightly better team than we are, only slightly. But I just have a funny feeling, right? I just think, the fans are going to start getting irritated. Burnley have had 9 0-0 draws this season. 9.
Including?
including
One against us.
against us. And to be honest, they didn't look great that day.
No.
We were definitely on the back foot for most of that game, but we're thoroughly deserved of the point. So I don't know. I can just see us just
4 points. Come on, we're getting 4 points over the next 2 games.
So we're going to draw against Bristol City, Matt, and we're going to beat Burnley. I'm telling you that right now. That's a true fact.
You heard it here first. And Dan and I will be back to dissect that, see if that was true. And no doubt Dan will have egg on his face. And hopefully it'll be 6 points. So, but we'll see. Let's do it again next week, yeah?
Well, before I do, I just need to give you the team from Pep Clotet's last game.
I was hoping you'd forgotten. I didn't want to even bring it up because I don't think I've done very well here. And maybe I'm going a bit obvious as well. I'm sure there's some names in there which I've forgotten they even played for Oxford. So let's go Eastwood. I think he played. Messinio. Henry.
Just keep going. I'm going to put the team up in a second.
Dickey.
These are all good names. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm going to put Cameron Brannigan in, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And then I've got to, and that's where my brain started to freeze a bit.
When you look at the team, let's have a look. To be honest, I can't remember. Right, this is the team. I'll read it out for those who are listening on the podcast. It is Eastwood, Carroll, Aaron Martin, John Messinio, Dwight Tiendali, James Henry, who scored, Josh Ruffles, Alex Mowat, Isaac Buckley-Ricketts, Agon Mameti, and John Abika, with Napa and Ryan Ledson coming off the bench. When you look at that team, Matt, it's not massively surprising that we lost that game, and not massively surprising, really, that he got sacked. I'm guessing Dickey was signed injured, was he? And I think Cameron Brannigan was signed injured. So neither of those two came into the team for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a great team. Mameti.
What was the score that day?
We lost 2-1 to Bury. Whatever happened to Bury?
Exactly. Short but sweet era. And the jury, for me, the jury's still out whether we can redefine his era as a success and maybe what would have been. So, jury's out for me on that one.
All right, let's leave it there. Thanks ever so much for listening, watching, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Take care.
The big man with a big goal on the big occasion.
If we get 6 points, can we start to promote playoffs?
Oh, you can't go there, Matt. It's too early. Don't say these things. People can clip this up and play it at the end of the season. We'll be like, oh.